Good evening to everyone. Welcome to the Alliance on the Move. We greet you with all the richest blessings that we had wished you at the beginning of this year. And I know that our panel right now is very excited to come and bring you the information tonight. We'll be dealing with the budget 2022. As you would know, this is our first program since the reading of the budget in the National Assembly. But first, let me just introduce to you my panel. The panel with you tonight, we have MP Sherrod Duncan, no stranger to you and everyone else. Welcome, Mr. Duncan. We have also
Yeah.
MP Ricky Ramsroop also here with us this evening. And we
Thank you.
have our diaspora representative, Mr. Ewart Marshall, executive member of the Alliance for Change and one of our diaspora representatives. So, guys, welcome to the program. I just want to go straight into it. I would just give everyone a chance to just give an introductory statement and then let us go directly into the program. We have so much information to bring you about budget 2022, what is in it for you, or more so, what is not in it for you. So, Sherrod, good evening.
Well, Teresa, a very good evening to you and our panelists, Ewart and Ricky. Well, the folks in this country, I think, know that there's nothing in the budget for any of us. And the fact that you had Irfan Ali out there just today trying to make a case, but doing very poorly at it as to why people should support this budget tells its own story, are far away from being acceptable because there's nothing in it for the people. Full stop.
No, well, thank you, Sherrod. Ricky, what are your initial comments to budget 2022?
Well, thank you, Jarita, and good evening to my two colleagues here and our friends from in Berbice and across Guyana and in the diaspora also. I know there are a lot of persons who are tuning on their Facebook Live. So I want to welcome you guys and say good evening and stay safe. First, Jarita, I wanted to say that Budget 22 is it's no other difference from the other previous two budgets. It remains the same. For me, they could have put it to $1 trillion. It would make a difference because when you do a budget, is where you're spending the money, where you're directing that money to. And have you seen that the biggest um, uh, persons or people supposed to receiving the benefit of that budget was supposed to be the public servant? And that itself going to tell you because I and as we go along the program, I'm going to tell you some calls that I received up to today on that. But the budget 2022 is no different from the other. That's why we said earlier, brace for an impact because we will continue along that path.
The budget
Brace
crash.
yourself. Brace yourself, basically. Ewart, what is being said in the diaspora about budget 2022? I know there has been a lot of talks prior to the reading of the budget in the diaspora. I know this is the very first budget that we have that is utilizing the country's oil resources, and persons had a lot of expectations, especially the Guyanese living in the diaspora. I can also say that we had a lot of talks by the PPP administration asking persons that telling people rather that they're going to be so much for them to look forward to. They can come home, set up shop once more. What is the diaspora saying right now after the reading of that budget?
Well, good night, Jarita. Good night, Sherrod. Good night, Ricky. I'm very honored to be a part of this group. You're some bright MPs, and I think the future bodes well for Guyana with three such as yourselves in the Parliament. My initial thoughts on the budget, from what I've read and from what I've seen, it doesn't strike me as a budget that has been well thought out. There's a lot of spending, of course, a lot of money in this budget, but I don't know that the budget itself, as indicated, how this money is going to get into the hands of ordinary Guyanese. And a second thing that perhaps economists might be more aware of, what is the country's capacity to absorb all of this new spending? You know, it's one thing to say you have money in the pocket, your pocket, but how are you going to spend it? Where is it going to go? What will be the effects on the economy as far as inflation and the other effects of pumping massive amounts of money into an economy like Ghana? And it's a disappointment that these specifics haven't been well thought out.
Well, it's an excellent point that you raised, because I know we raised this point prior after reading the budget also, and we can do a comparison, and I know these comparisons will be made as we go into the budget debates next week in Parliament. But indeed, we have a big issue with capacity and our ability to utilize the fundings locally and so forth. But it's very interesting for persons to note that some of the things that I've just pinpointed, just brushing through the estimates and so forth, is that even monies that the government came to the National Assembly for prior, a lot of those monies were not spent from 2021. As you would recall, Ricky, Sherrod, Ewart, at the reading of the 2021 budget, it was highlighted that this whole bright idea that there's going to be this youth council, and $60 million was put towards this youth council, and it was going to be set up under the office of the president, because they care so much for young people. And there's a lot of times the PPP goes out there, and they say the right thing, but they never do what they say. So they never do the right thing altogether. If you were to actually go through those estimates right now, you would realize that for the $60 million that they budgeted for the Youth Council for 2021, not one penny was spent out of it, because they had no intention of actually investing any time in going down that road. They just went out, and it sounded nice, so they said that they're going to be so interested in young people and building capacity and hearing what young people have to say. But when the rubber hit the road, it was a different story, and not one penny was used towards initiating that council altogether. So again, it's in the budget for 2022 now, and I don't know. I don't have any hope based on past behavior. I have no hope that any work will be done there once more. But these little things are what we're looking at. Guys, I want to engage you in action in the discussion of the actual figure, the budget number altogether. I know persons that are looking at us right now. I know we've been streamed live in Barbies, and I want the persons in Barbies to understand this is on the books the largest budget ever. It's 552.9 billion Guyana dollars. This is the largest budget
Everybody
number that
knows the figures.
everyone knows it's the largest budgetary allocation that you've ever heard in the history of Guyana, and you would have expected that. I've said it on several platforms before that this will be a large budget in terms of number. I said it before because this is the very first budget that is utilizing the oil resources. Any government that was in office right now would have been having that huge number come out of a budget. But again, I said that we're going to come to you, the people, and we're going to examine what is in the budget for you. There's no point in having the biggest budget ever if there's absolutely no thought into how you alleviate poverty reduction policies. And these are the things persons are concerned with. How does this affect me and my standard of living, and my children, and my cousins, and my friends, and my neighbors? We live in a country where everyone knows someone in poverty, if they're not in poverty themselves. And the budget basically did not address that. Also, one of the most important things I think persons should know is that this budget is draining the oil resources. It's every cent of it they're draining out. $126.7 billion is coming from the oil revenues. But guess what? Last year, in 2021, the PPP came to the National Assembly with a budget of $383.1 billion. And before the year was even out, they came back four times. And the four times they came back, it was a total of $49.9 billion. So altogether, with their 2021 budget and the four financial papers, they came to the National Assembly for 433 billion Guyana dollars. So that was the actual allocation that they came for in 2021, $433 billion. So when you are to subtract from this 552.9 billion, when you are to take away the oil resources, that money there, you will realize that the non-oil revenues that they utilize is actually less than the 2021 budget by $6.8 billion. So without the oil money, without them having the oil money to spend, they would have been coming to the National Assembly a year later with less money to spend on the people of this country. So again, I want to say we thank the Granger led administration for the foundation that was set up so that the country could be benefiting from the oil revenues right now. It was the Granger administration's intention that those monies would be utilized directly to benefit the poor and working class, but that's not what is happening. Mr. Duncan.
Yep, a fantastic point. All of the guys are making. One of the things that struck me this morning, I was listening to Irfan Ali. Of course, we got to keep bringing the credible and valid information to the people. So you have to submit yourself to listening to Irfan ramble on and rant for about 45 minutes. And that is what struck me, that he's saying to the Guyanese people that this is the budget that is going to make all your dreams come through. But you've articulated there for us that these guys have had two budgets before, billions of dollars, and you're saying, oh, now this one here is going to cater for roads, and now this one is going to cater for bridge, and now this one is going to cater for your every need, and try to bring down the cost of living. Three budgets later, billions of dollars that they are throwing at the problems that we face, but they realize it's not the problems, it's them. Is their incompetent management, is their bad leadership, poor leadership, that is responsible for us being where we are. Ewart raised a point earlier. I want to circle back to the capacity of this economy to absorb the kind of spending that they want to do. And that is part of the challenge that we have. But don't take our word for it. You might say we're biased, we're AFC, and so we are going to be we're going to have a jaundiced view. You might say that we're part of the coalition, the APNU AFC coalition. So obviously our views are going to be jaundiced. But I want to refer you guys to what Kaito News wrote just this morning in one of his columns, the Peep and Tom column. Good information here. This is Peep and Tom. This is not E-word talking. It says, who said rather, Guyana had suffered in the past as a consequence of poor public sector implementation. International financial institutions found that poor capacity affected the country's ability to draw down on external resources. The budget makes little attempt to fix the problems of the public sector. This is this column of the fix the problem of public sector management. In fact, the PPC appears to give little priority to reforming the public sector, which is bloated and which is a drag on the public expenditure. A leaner, more efficient public sector could release more resources and improve the economy's absorptive capacity. They go on to say here, as I end the quotation, it is also questionable whether the economy can absorb such a massive increase in public expenditure at a time when the government is also hoping to see an increase in private expenditure, inclusive of private direct investment in the economy. So there are more questions than answer when one reads this budget, when one analyzes and dissects the anatomy of this budget, the chief of which, it does not affect the cost of living, which we're going to come to a little later on. The high cost of living, that is.
Well, clearly we're not hearing enough about this very point, the cost of living and inflation. We know that as a result of many things, the pandemic included, world economies are experiencing, record inflation levels, certainly inflation levels that they haven't seen recently. And I don't know that this budget and the way it's crafted um, would be able to deal with the inflation that the whole world is seeing. I know the prices in Guyana are ridiculous at this point, and we seem to be hurtling towards something, some unknown thing. Almost like driving a car down the road with your eyes closed. And I pray that calmer heads prevail, and we can get some answers with regards to how this money is going to be spent and what the effects on the economy are going to be, specifically how it's going to affect inflation.
Yeah. Look, guys. I
Uh,
wanted to
you know,
run some.
good point. Good point there, you.
Yeah. I was looking at the statistics from 2019 when we actually left the government as our last year of budget. We had an economy. The economy grew by 5.4%. In 2020, the growth was 4.3. With the oil, with the oil added to that, the oil responsible for 50.8%. So the economy grew by 43.5%. That means there was a negative 7.3% non-oil economy. You see what happened there? You see what happened there? Without the oil, if the APC didn't bring that oil, what would happen? So you can see that the emphasis has been placed now on the petroleum industry while stifling the other sector, which they promised in 2021 and in 2020 that they will be ensure that the other sectors are sustainable. In 2021, the economy grew by 19.9%, which means the non-oil responsible for 50.3%. I'm sorry, the oil responsible for 50.3 and the non-oil is 4.6%. And that is what is troubling for me. Let me break this down for you and tell you why 4.6% is troubling for me. Because we saw gold drop by 14.8%, rice 16.1, and sugar 4.7. This is just a few. Many others at the sector decline. So I don't understand how you get 4.6% growth. Jurita, maybe you're the economist, you can tell us more about that. But that is what I want to put in a nutshell. How is it that um, we are having these decline in the sector, and then there's a growth of 4.6 of the non-oil economy? Now it's clearly telling you that the emphasis is being placed on the petroleum, and this is spelling danger for Guyana. Danger, Jurita.
Yeah,
All right.
but
Ricky,
Joita, as Ricky said that, Ricky talked about oil, and we underscored early on how it is the Granger administration, the APNU AFC coalition, that set the framework for First Oil, that allowed us to be at this point here and allowed us to have in the sovereign wealth fund, the national resource fund, this $126 billion available to us because the PPP ran the economy into the ground. And had we not this backup, again compliments to the David Granger led administration, it would have been total chaos right now. But that being said, these are the guys, Drita, Ricky, Ewart, who said to us that it was a bad ExxonMobil deal. The PSA was bad. They were coming in to renegotiate it. We didn't know about deal making and all of that. They have not changed a word, a line, a letter out of that same deal that they campaigned on and say it was bad, it was awful, and they were going to come and instruct ExxonMobil. You know what they're saying now? Oh, the oil deals they strike in the future, they will try to get more out of it. These are the people who are telling us now that they got a better plan for the economy when the cost of living is soaring. As Ewart says, one of the highest GDPs in the world. We have one of the richest nations in the world. Not only do we have oil, we got bauxite and gold and timber and you name it, right? We have it. and yet people here are suffering and hurting bad because, again, nothing in this budget. And the Guyanese people listen to it, they've looked at the number, and they've come to their own conclusion. Nothing in this budget addresses the high cost of living that affecting each and every Guyanese.
If you were to step back, and being in the diaspora and being thousands of miles away, you see things from a slightly different perspective than the people in Guyana. Reading the news, reading the press releases, all of that, you get the impression that this budget was all about drawing down the money, the oil money, one, and two, coming up with this local content plan to make sure that this money gets into the hands of private businesses. Now, I have no problem with the local content plan. I believe Guyanese, first and foremost, should benefit from its wealth, Guyanese business people and all of that. But it seems like no thought was given to any other thing other than getting this money out of the U.S. bank, and how they were going to, funnel it into the accounts of, or the hands of these business people, private sector, this and that, and this chamber and all of that. There was no thought, very little thought given to how ordinary, regular Guyanese who don't own a big business or part of some huge organization, or don't have a shore base or something, how the regular Guyanese are going to get this money and deal with this money. And that's a shame, because the economy is not just oil. It
Yeah.
is not just oil. I would have loved to hear that, that a large part of these monies were going to be spent on free education from kindergarten through university. I would have liked to hear more specifics on free health care for everyone. If you're saying that you're going to pump the money into the economy, I'd like to hear that the money is going towards those things, because those benefit everyone, whether you're in oil and gas or you're just an artist, no matter what it is you do.
You're absolutely correct, Ewart. And I just want to go back to what Ricky was speaking about a bit earlier, which is very important for persons to note. And with all the numbers that Ricky just given, a lot of persons are not very inclined to be interested in the numbers and the details of the budget and all of that. But Ricky was just telling you, and he called some figures, like he said, the growth in 2019, and then the decline in 2020 and all of that. Basically, what the numbers show, and I want persons to listen. I want persons to understand what is going on right now. The PPP they went on a social media rampage prior to being in office, and they said that the coalition was only interested, they were only focusing on the oil resources and all of that, and that they are going to make sure that the other sectors in the country is going to be booming going into office. And 3 budgets later, this is the 3rd budget since they've been in office, they are solely relying on the oil resources to push the country forward. They have no other resources because basically what is happening is the non-oil GDP, the non-oil sector today in 2022, based on the numbers that the PPP brought to the National Assembly, it shows that the non-oil sector in this country, the non-oil economy, is worse off than it was in 2019. So from 2019 to now, there was no growth. There was only decline. There was a decline of 7.3% in 2020. And now there was a little growth of 4.6, which did not recover that decline of 7.3. So today in 2022, the non-oil economy is worse than it was under the Granger administration in 2019. So that's just to give person a picture of the numbers and what the numbers is actually showing. But I know we're on in Barbies right now, so I want to read a bit of information for persons again that was in the budget presentation by Ashni Singh, because the PPP went into office again, and as Barbicians would know, the PPP love to take sugar, and sugar has been used as a political football throughout, and it's very sad and it's very annoying for them to keep utilizing sugar as their platform to push a certain agenda. But I want persons to understand what was said by Ashni Singh in the National Assembly when he was reading the budget as it pertains to sugar particularly. The PPP went into office and they went to Barbies and they told the Barbicians that the coalition was doing absolutely nothing for sugar. They said the coalition was the worst thing ever. They didn't care about sugar and they didn't care about but that industry altogether. But guess what? Three budgets later, this is their third budget. They went into office in 2020. This is 2022. Ashni Singh came to the National Assembly, and this is what he said: Barbadians, I want you to hear us because there's a lot of times misinformation is being peddled to you about the sugar industry, and you need to understand that it is not so. And you need to go listen back to Ashni Singh. These are his words. Ashni Singh stood in the National Assembly and he said that, okay, let me read. This is the budget book. I want persons to see where I'm reading from. This is the budget book. He said the sugar growing subsector managed to contain the reduction in its value added to 34.7% in 2021 and delivered total sugar production of 58,025 tons. It's right here, 58,025 tons. What is interesting for you to know? What is interesting for you to know is that in 2020, the sugar production was 87,875 tons. Basically, they reduced the sugar production by 34.7%. This is the same PPP that says they know how to manage sugar and that the coalition didn't know how to manage sugar. The decline is tremendous and they have absolutely no strategy, no plan, nothing structural that could change that devastating decline in sugar. It is purely mismanagement, and these are things, these are information that persons need to understand. Ricky, I know this is something that you're passionate about also.
Thank you. I got to laugh like Sherrod. This is what I was trying, and we went 6 months on the Barbies TV program, this very program, to explain to the
Warning them.
workers and the Barbician that the sugar will be in the state that it is. We were trying to right size the sugar industry to ensure that it's become profitable. And when we did that, as Jurita just mentioned, the target 87,000 tons plus tons. You understand? They have the same thing that we left. Look at what we're saying here. The same thing. When we left in 2019 and 2020, they took over. They left the same thing and it dropped by 34.7% production and it's further reducing. So when we say we were right sizing the sugar industry, they now said they're going to reduce the target. What is the difference here? What is the difference? We were saying right sizing because we already knew. We engaged. We had a technical study that was done to show this. We never come out of thin air and said that we are going to right size the sugar industry. GAU was also part and parcel with their input, and it's clearly stated that we need to right size the sugar industry. So when they are coming, it's like Ewart. So when they're coming to saying that we are closing sugar estate, that's a myth. Because I want to tell people, and I'm going to spark in my budget speech, that they closed down Diamond and LBI Estate too, and they were about to close down Wales Estate.
Ricky, in addition to that, these are the folks who said to Barbicians and others, said to this country that APNU AFC, as you rightfully say, closed down the sugar estates, and you've corrected that. They did their own closing too. We were right sizing because of where sugar was and how they had ran sugar into the ground. We failed to remember that it was July 2015 when the then CEO of Gaisuko told this nation that sugar was bankrupt. We had just come in and the CEO told us sugar was bankrupt. But besides that, just like how they said to us, they were going to revise and to renegotiate the ExxonMobil oil deal because it was a bad deal, and to date, it has not been done. They said to this country they were going to reopen those sugar estates.
Yeah.
To date, not one. Not one. Let us suppose, for argument's sake, that APNU closed these sugar estates. They have not reopened one of them to date. pumping billions
Sure.
into the Isuko that remains, but not one. You know what they're talking about now? Getting sugar workers trained in oil and gas. How many you can train in oil and gas? They know where sugar is. They know there is no future for sugar, but they rather lie to the sugar workers, like they lie to tell them we close down as against right sizing the sugar industry.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that point because I was about to tell you how they're going to close this. In Enmore, they are going to set up some kind of factory there, a big manufacturing factory. I don't know if you saw it in the head of state um, uh, Facebook page, where they're going to create employment right away. That is telling you a message that they will close the sugar estate completely down, and they have no intention. You already heard the statement from the vice president that state that there is no definite timeline of reopening of the sugar estate. You remember that?
Yep,
Those are
yep.
public document, public statement that have been made. So it's kind of strange when people are trying to, try to hypnotize their base and try to control their base. It's a strange thing and it's a terrible thing to do. You understand me? But we want our Barbarian to think for themselves, read for themselves, and to understand what is happening in this economy.
And I want to add to that very quickly. Them guys gonna dig out everything from the natural resource fund. They can dig it out, right? But here, what is happening currently, there is nothing left for the future generation because these guys want to spend all now. It's not some now and some later. But the argument is also there that part of why they are funding all of these big ticket projects is because they know they don't like to do any studies. They don't like the environmental impact assessment. They don't like any of these things. They don't like research. God knows they don't like to read. And so, if you are to scrutinize, for instance, the gas to shore, any credible international investor scrutinize that, they would understand all the pitfalls that lay there. They said, Irfan Ali told this nation without reading, he said he hadn't read the document, but he knows, right, that the new Demerara Harbor Bridge, where they propose to put it, not where the studies say it should be done, where they propose to put it, he knows it is going to be good for the environment. He said he told this
Yeah.
nation, he didn't read it, but I know it's going to be environmentally friendly.
But
If these projects are so big, are so good, why don't you put them together in the proper way and then open them to international investors and let us see? You know who they're going to attract to them? The FIP multilals of this world, to Amila Fall and so on. And that is why we're in the mess that we're in. The World Bank told them, the international people that they're more brighter than, that Skeldon is not going to work. Do not put all this money into Skeldon, as Raphael Trotman, the chairman of the AFC, calls it, that behemoth there that has not produced 1 kilowatt of electricity, has not produced and sold for any what you call it, any profit, 1 pound of sugar, since they pumped all of that billions of dollars into it, because they have this history of not being able to manage these big projects.
I think it's clear that well, a couple of things. At this current rate, there will be no sugar industry in less than 10 years. One. And two, much of the money being drawn down from this National Resources Fund will just disappear within a few years, and we'll be left saying, what happened? And I pray that we find a way to halt this thievery. I don't know what else to call it at this point.
That's it.
I would just like to pause for a few moments and let me just welcome Arnold. He is another executive member of the Alliance for Change. So welcome, Arnold, to tonight's program. And I just want to just pull you into the discussion right away. I know you've been following before you came through. So we're discussing the budget 2022, the budget being touting the largest budget ever. But again, we're trying to pinpoint. We're still, with all the help we have, we're still looking to find the benefits that is in there for the working class of this country, and we can't find those benefits. Again, we see the the PPP going out there and trying to convince the Guyanese people that when they give all of the money to the wealthy persons in society and to the businessmen and the businesswomen in the country, then eventually this money is going to trickle down and they are going to see the benefit of it. And that has been proven to be a complete failure. And this time around, persons are not accepting that. They do not believe it's going to trickle down because three budgets after, it has not trickled down. So why would it start trickling down now? Persons know that that concept is flawed, it is fake, it is misinformation, and they are not believing it. Arnold, what are you hearing about budget 2022? What are people saying out there when you interact with them?
Well, the truth be told, a lot of people, especially public servants, your nurses, your teachers, nobody can really see what is in the budget. All you're seeing is spending on these massive big projects. We're building bridges and building roads, and that's it. When you look at the presentation by the Honorable Ashni Singh, all you're seeing is declining sectors, and like you were discussing just now, the sugar. You see a drop from what, 80 something thousand tons to 50 something thousand tons, and then just last week, I believe it was it. Right, just last week, Gaisuko said they're going to further for 2022 decline in the production, so it may drop another 10,000 or 20,000 tons. You're seeing the Honorable Minister Mustafa, they went to the sugar terminal at them. You see, they went to the sugar terminal and they're transforming the sugar terminal into a rice terminal now. So there are clear signs to show that the PPP is getting out of sugar. The future sugar is dead. And yet, you see in this budget, the PP is pumping 6 billion into the sugar industry again. It's madness.
So I want to pick up a point from you, Arnold, because I was listening to the
it's clear madness. And all this, you see gold decline, you see sugar decline. When you look at the budget and you take out that oil economy figure, the budget is only 4.6%, which is a decline from the previous years under the APN, in which you have like 5.5% growth and those things. You see just yesterday, you see it start trending on social media, a new currency is coming out. It clearly shows that inflation is happening. Inflation is going skyrocket. And you've seen the prices in the market already. People cannot afford. You bring a budget where you give pensioners $3,000. Now let's break that down. To get to the post office to get that pension and get back home, the pensioner already spent $1,000 out of that $3,000 in taxi money. Then they go and line up at 6 o'clock in the morning. They might buy a breakfast. Typical breakfast is $1,000. So that $3,000 that you get the pensioner, they didn't even collect the money from the post office properly, and they already spent $2,000 out of it. So what exactly are you giving these pensioners? What exactly are you giving poor people? There's absolutely nothing.
Arnold raises a beautiful point. Arnold raises a beautiful point here about the pensioners, because Ewart knows that in his part of the world there is a gentleman called Rahm Emanuel from Chicago. He was the mayor of Chicago there, and he was also Barack Obama's chief of staff. And something he said years ago still resonates. He says, never let a crisis go to waste. Now, I heard Irfan Ali, as this nation did, if we listen to him ranting at 7:30 this morning about, what they're doing is bringing this country into onto the international stage and doing international things and all of that, while people are hungry and a 6-year-old got to walk from Little Diamond to Diamond Grove to get something to eat, and he worried about bringing we on the international stage. But that being said, they have let this problem go to they've let this crisis go to waste. Arnold talked about the pensioners. What about a little plastic card that money is deposited and any pensioner could go to any bank and withdraw a little money when the month comes without having to stand up? It's a pandemic, and we should not be we should be social distancing and all of those things. People still got to go and stand up in lines. They are about to go and share out more money, bottom houses, dragging around suitcases full with dollars so that Molly and Mala could thief out the money of the Guyanese people. What about ensuring that everybody has a bank card and you could go and push a bank card in any ATM around the country and withdraw some money? But as against that, you see banks in Port Kaituma closing down, banks here closing down. The total opposite that should be happening. Why? Because the economy is crashing because of them. They're allowing this whole thing to go to waste. We should be giving every child a tablet and a MiFi, subsidizing the internet, to improve online learning. They are so determined that they don't want to take shame out of their eyes, lock down the schools, and try to push back COVID and all its variants. We are missing a moment here to really and truly bring this country in the 21st century. First world countries have gone on and left us, right? And Ali is there trying to convince us again that this Senapad they want to give us 3 times a day is good for we, right? Really and truly, you could take Senapad once in a while, but they want to give us it like 3 square meals. That is this budget. That is this budget here.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Sharad. If they were serious about bringing Guyana's economy and society into the modern way of doing things, the modern world, things like a cash card and we would certainly be part of and implementing different ways and systems for getting this money into the pockets of or the bank accounts of Guyanese people would certainly be at the forefront of this budget. There are other ways of getting money into the economy other than just giving it to big business and hoping it trickles down. Trickle down economy or economics is something we experienced in the United States many decades ago. And yet, like you said, it does not work because the money doesn't trickle down. It trickles out into somebody else's account, some other country, who knows? But it doesn't trickle down. It does not get to the ordinary people.
They don't even spend money in Guyana.
Look,
we've been talking about trickle-down economics for some time now, and we have to keep talking about it because of the fact that this is the third budget that is coming from the PPP, and the third budget that is utilizing the same policy measures, the same direction they're going in 3 budgets after they took office in 2020. They're basically telling the people of Guyana that it is okay for them to go and give money to the business community because the business community is going to in turn inject that money back into their pockets, and it never happens. And we're not just saying that it doesn't happen. It has been proven that concept, trickle-down economics, it has been proven to be a failure throughout the world. This is not something that we're saying. You can go research it for yourselves. Trickle-down economics does not work. The only way that the people in the country can benefit is if the government put policies in place that directly put money into the hands and into the pockets of the ordinary Guyanese. And the way in which you do that is to increase their wages and salaries. That is the number one way. Go and increase their wages and salary. That is what the Granger-led administration did. The APNUFC was in office. Was a guarantee. Every budget, every single budget, you had an increase in the wages and salaries of the working class, the public servants of this country. And the PPP does not do that. So when they go out, and one of the things that they're talking about now, I listened to the address from Irfan Ali, and one of the things that they're talking about, and a word that they're incorrectly using, basically a terminology, they're talking about disposable income. And they're giving persons more disposable income. No, that is not so. There's no disposable income that is there. You haven't increased wages and salaries for persons. No, you have not increased persons' disposable income. You haven't reduced the tax. You have not touched their disposable income altogether. And persons need to understand that. We are simply saying that they have done absolutely nothing that will directly aim at reducing poverty. We have done absolutely nothing that is going to be directly aimed at raising the standard of living for the ordinary Guyanese. And for the ordinary Guyanese, I talk about over 90% of you in Barbies. I talk about over 90% of you watching online. You are the ordinary Guyanese. We are right there with you, and they have done absolutely nothing that is going to benefit you or your children. Absolutely nothing. And you can go out there and you can try to prove us wrong, but you cannot find anything in there that is going to benefit you. And I challenge persons. I mean, we're going to come at the end of the year. This budget is 2022 budget. Let's face it. Throughout the year, persons have to live with the budget that the PPP is about to go to the assembly and pass, because they're going to utilize their one-seat majority and they're going to abuse it to the highest level to pass this atrocious budget that has nothing in it for the working class of this country. And you Guyanese, you the persons in Barbies that are listening to us tonight, you're going to be left to face that budget for yourselves and your families. The price of plantains ain't going down right now. They have put absolutely no policy in place that directly addresses the rising cost of living, inflation, as you would know it. They haven't done anything to address that. They are setting targets. Their targets that they're setting is that inflation is going to reduce. But guess what? They went into the last budget, 2021, and they set a whole list of targets, and they have not achieved not one of those targets that was set. They have failed miserably in actually even reaching halfway to those targets. They have set targets for growth in sectors that actually had declined. This is the truth that persons need to acknowledge. For the non-oil GDP, the target that they set was 6.1%. Yet we're here with the non-oil GDP being 4.6%. Again, they set a target that at the end of the 2022, they should have a non-oil GDP growth of 7.7%. These are just numbers they're putting, but they are not putting policies in place to make sure that they accomplish those numbers. At the end of 2022, they're going to have to come back and say, well, we did not reach that target. They said so many things. I want to look at the deficit actually. At 2021 budget, the PPP set a target to achieve the deficit, the non-oil GDP deficit of 8.7%. Ashley Singh came to the National Assembly and they read and he said that the deficit was actually 10.2%. So even the deficit was greater. They could not even achieve the target of having an 8.7% deficit. They had a 10.2. And even today, with the largest budget ever, $552.9 billion, the PPP still comes to the National Assembly with a non-oil GDP, that deficit being projected at 7% for 2022. And of course, a lot of people are not interested in the numbers, but we like to bring you the numbers because we know that there's a small bracket of persons out there that's actually listening and actually interested in these numbers because they know what it means. It basically means that the PPP has failed the country drastically in 2021, and we expect them to do no different in 2022 because they have put absolutely no policy in place that will change that.
It's clear that the APNU AFC coalition handled the economy better than this current government is handling it. Even without oil money, the coalition was able to put money in the pockets of ordinary Guyanese. And I'd like for the four of you to talk a little bit more about, how an APNU AFC government would better distribute the oil wealth, because I know you all have ideas on this, and I'd like to hear some of that, if you will.
I think, go ahead, Arnold. Sorry.
Well, look, to answer your word, look, clearly, oil will only last for a certain number of years, and we have to use that oil money to get people into the non-oil sector like agriculture. Agriculture is a big economy. Is a lot of money at play in agriculture. And look, I looked at the president the other day talking about these shade houses that they're building, and he wants young people to get into agriculture and things, which is all fine, which is all nice talk. But the red tape those young people has to go through to acquire that land, It's like then they ain't gonna get it done. Then you look in the budget that Ashni Singh present 300 million in a revolving loan at the small business agency. Why not make it a 500 million or $1 billion? Put $1 billion in that young people can access that money and go into the farming. When you put $300 million and you want young people to go into farming, just to get that land is a run wrong, is a red tape. Then when you fine, you get the land, the government may clear some red tape and you get a piece of land, a half acre or 1 acre, whatever it is. The amount of money now you have to spend to develop that land. And you don't start planting yet, just to develop that land. You're gonna spend about $500,000 or $1 million to develop that land. So that $300 million that they're trying to put at this big figure in small business that people gonna get. How much people you actually think getting that money?
Yep.
When they gotta go into farming, it's nothing.
And then
those are programs that those are programs where you should increase the money.
Arnold, if in the system you put up with the Sharon Hicks, you gotta pay $200,000 a month. So that's another cost you gotta factor in.
Sharad,
the kickback, Sharad.
Ewart asked a very interesting question about the Natural Resources Fund and what we will be doing with that thing. If you look at our manifesto, you would have seen the plan that we had there. We had this overarching Green State Development Strategy. Under that umbrella, you understand, we started getting programs going. One important one that we're focusing on is free education from nursery to tertiary, bro. That is what we were doing. We were investing in the people, not the road and the bridges that say we're going to eat. Once you develop your human capital or human resources, there's nothing stopping you. You understand that? Nothing, because we believe in the people. And once you ensure that
Ricky, I actually want to just step in a little bit on that also. Correct.
Yeah. Right. So I was saying that free education was one of that what we were going to invest in. We were going to investing in healthcare. Put priorities in healthcare. And given this is a pandemic, I want you to look back at the budget for healthcare here versus the other public infrastructure. About what is happening here. The two. We should have given health more priorities. They put a number of hospitals that we'll be developing. At which location again? It is only going to location that have access to only day support base. It is not centralized. So we were going to bring those kind of big projects on board to ensure that the resources are being used. We were going to do direct cash transfer.
Correct.
To our citizens of this country.
No, it's direct cash
transfer. We were going to invest money based on the natural, and I will come back to the natural resources structure for you a little, Ewart. But we were going to invest money where it was sustainable, because with financial export, you understand me, we would have put the money into companies around the world. For example, the same very Facebook here. We would have put money where you can sustain, just like the Norwegian did. You understand me? We would have ensured that our pensioners are taking over at least $50,000, not $3,000 additional here. This was the plan that the AP and UFC had. You understand? Mm-hmm. Natural Resources Bill, which is the boasting and saying, oh, it was not passed on time and this and that, and all the powers into the Minister of Finance hand. Now, it didn't say Winston Jordan, it said a Minister of Finance. It means that any minister with this Minister of Finance could have got that power, but because they don't have one, so they have to change it. You understand? You know who's controlling all the finance. Yeah, now, but remove. Yeah. Sorry, Sharad. I just want to make this quite clear, because they keep hammering us about we had a poor 2019 NRF bill act. They removed 22 members oversight committee from that bill. And that is what we are, that 22 members, including people from the 10 natural region of this country, including Region 6. You would have had a representation on that committee. and that committee would select another technical committee with the criteria of like the auditors and all these things on financial export to deal with what they're now calling a board. A board. There's no board. You understand me? Sherrod and colleagues, they totally removed those 22 member, replaced it with three members or to five, 3 to 5 members that is controlled by the president. So you remove the power from the minister and put them in the president, who we could have taken the finance minister to hold accountable. But now you can't touch the president because he's been protected under the constitution. I want you to understand that. So they're
I
going to use
want
the
to
one
I want to jump in
parliament.
here a little bit with you, Ricky.
All right. So they want to, I'm going to finish. So
I
they
actually
want to
want
use
to
the
jump
one
in
seat
here with you a
majority.
little bit because yes,
Right. So they want to use the one seat majority to pass this money. And right now you could see that the budget is based on a petroleum fund, but there's no specific project in that budget that you can identify that where the money will be spent. And this when we talk about thievery, this is what we talk about. Thank you. Sorry guys.
Thank you so much, Ricky. All excellent points, very, very good points. Things that but we need to expand on a whole lot more. But and as we wrap up, I actually want, I think Ewart's question and point was very well put, that we need what we had done with the money. This is not just about saying what they are not doing with it, but more so what the coalition would have done with this money. And I can tell people that the coalition had a very strong plan when it comes to the utilization of the oil revenues altogether. And I can actually quote because I have the manifesto before me. This is a public document. Person can go access it from the Alliance for Change website. The entire manifesto is uploaded on that website. And I can quote from that website right now. And for example, when it comes to the public servants of this country, the public servants of this country hasn't even been mentioned in the budget presentation, with the exception of Ashley Singh saying, well, they give the public servants 7% last year. That is all that was mentioned about public servants. In the APNUFC manifesto, the plan that APNUFC had to utilize the oil resources, it spells out, and I'm reading from the manifesto right now, that says allocate affordable housing to public servants, nurses, teachers, and disciplined service employees, including interest subsidies to keep their mortgages affordable. You can go to education. It says implement the right to education as enshrined in Article 27 of the Constitution of the Republic of Guyana, which guarantees free education from nursery to the university, a right of every citizen. We can go on. It spoke about implementing actually expanding the public new education nutrition service so that all students receive 3 meals at school every day, and implement and expand the public education transportation system to provide increased support for students and disadvantaged persons. And we can go on and on with that manifesto, because we are not just saying what they should have done. This was our plan to utilize the oil resources, and our plan was people centered. Our plan was geared at making sure that we narrow the gap between the rich and the poor in this country. But the policies that the PPP have in place right now is expanding that gap. So right about now, this was the rich in the country, and this was the poor people. The majority of you that's looking at us, this is where you are. The PPP came into office, and this is the rich and this is the poor. So that gap has been expanded tremendously with the policies that they have been implementing. And that's what persons need to understand. And we are not okay with that, because the policies that the coalition had in place was specifically geared at reducing that gap, narrowing it as much as possible until we can get to a point of actual equality in our country. But today, sadly, we have absolutely no policy that is geared at doing that. Guys, I'm watching the time, so
Level
I'm going
playing
to
field.
invite you
Level
all
playing
to
field.
final thoughts. Ewart, what's your final thoughts?
My final thought is that I want to encourage the opposition in Guyana's parliament, certainly you young MPs to carry the fight, to say what continue saying what you said tonight, because there's too much at stake. We all read that Guyanese is supposedly the richest people in the world per capita and all of that. And, the budgets and the systems and the development of the country must reflect that fact. It is a fact. We can't waste money. We can't waste time. And I encourage you all to keep moving forward and bringing, don't be ashamed or afraid to bring your ideas forward, because they're good ideas for the development of the country, and the diaspora certainly will support you all in those endeavors.
Yep.
Thank you so much,
I only want to state that the debate starts on Monday, and the opposition MPs, AFC MPs, are going to be interrogating this budget. And so, folks, tune in from Monday morning. The debate starts in the National Assembly, so tune in.
Thank you so much, Sherrod. Ricky, your final thoughts?
Sherrod, they gave us 4 days to prepare for this budget debate.
Biggest budget ever.
4 days. A minimum of 7 days supposed to be given. This is, what you call it, shame or disrespectful?
Transparency and good governance, accountability and good governance.
4 days of the opposition to go to the budget. You understand? So my fellow Barbician and all our viewers and listeners, I want to thank you for listening to this program. That there's so much we want to talk about within the small space of hour, but we tried our best to give you a full cap of what was happening. So you know what, I want to let you tell you that you should keep your family safe. The COVID-19 pandemic is there. I heard there is another split in the Omicron, another mutation. So you have to continue to protect your loved ones and yourself, and just stay safe. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for joining us this evening. As you know, every Saturday at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., the Alliance on the Move program will be here with you, bringing the credible information, all discussions, and we're gonna aim at opening up the line so we can take some calls some evenings also. Guys, again, I'll just reiterate what Mr. Duncan said, that join us, go online. Persons can join. I think NCN is going to be streaming it also. And I encourage persons, supporters of the PPP, you are encouraged to go and listen to what the ministers have to say. Go listen to them. Listen to the way in which they represent you, the people, and how the actually more so. So thank you so much. And it was a pleasure being here. Have a good night.
Good night.